There is something that few dare to say. The Bible is not just a book of spirituality, it is also the best finance manual that exists. Yes, although it may sound strange, hidden within its pages are biblical financial secrets that have led ordinary people to build wealth, prosper in times of crisis, and live with purpose. Think about it. A young man named Joseph went from being a forgotten slave in a prison to becoming the governor of the most powerful empire of his time. How was this possible? It was not luck or coincidence, it was the application of biblical financial wisdom. Joseph understood something that many still have not grasped. True prosperity begins with solid principles and unwavering faith. And that same opportunity is within your reach, because the Bible is not just a spiritual book, it is a practical guide for our finances. We are not talking about magic recipes here, but about principles proven over centuries that have transformed the lives of millions. Because it is not just about earning money, but about learning how to create wealth according to the Bible, with purpose, discipline, and faith. If you have ever felt that money is never enough, that debts are suffocating you, or that you work without seeing results, this video is for you. We are going to explore together eternal principles that have stood the test of time and remain effective today. Before we begin, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications so you don't miss more content like this. And stay until the end, because what you will discover today could be exactly what you need to transform your financial life forever. The story of Joseph is not just an ancient tale, it is a timeless lesson in biblical financial wisdom that resonates to this day. A young man sold as a slave, forgotten in a prison, yet destined for greatness because of his faith and his ability to manage resources with excellence. During the years of abundance, Joseph did not fall into the trap of spending without measure. Instead, he stored and planned for the years of scarcity. How many times do we see people in times of prosperity waste what they have, forgetting that difficult times always come? Here lies one of the most important biblical principles for wealth, prudence, and administration. One day, Joseph slept as a slave, and the next, he woke up as governor. This transformation was not accidental, but the result of applying solid principles with faithfulness. Contentment is an unpopular word in a world that constantly screams at us, more, more, more. However, the Bible warns us, whoever loves money never has enough money, from Ecclesiastes 5 verse 10. We live in a society that pursues wealth without restraint, where success is measured by material possessions. But how many times have we seen rich people tormented by the anxiety of losing it all? Contentment does not mean settling for less. It means knowing how to enjoy what God has placed in our hands today while we work diligently for a better tomorrow. True financial success with the Bible begins here, with a grateful heart and a balanced mind. Honoring God with our finances is not a suggestion, it is a divine command that brings blessing. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops, from Proverbs 3 verse 9. The act of giving is not only a spiritual practice, but also a powerful strategy to unlock provision. Many people see tithing as a loss when, in reality, it is a spiritual investment with eternal returns. In the world of Christian finance, giving does not impoverish, it multiplies. How can someone expect to reap if they are not willing to sow? God honors those who honor Him, even in their economic resources. Unnecessary debts are a dangerous trap that enslaves millions of people. The borrower is slave to the lender, from Proverbs 22 verse 7. It is overwhelming to see how easy credit has led so many families to financial ruin. Credit cards at the limit, unnecessary loans, and impulsive decisions create a cycle of anxiety and frustration from which it seems impossible to escape. However, God did not call us to live chained to debt. The biblical principles for wealth teach us to be wise stewards, to avoid unnecessary expenses, and to get out of debt with discipline and prayer. And how many times have we seen people pray for provision while they waste the little they have? Financial management is not just a matter of numbers, it is an act of obedience and faith. The biblical financial secrets are not magic formulas, but consistent and faithful practices. God multiplies what we manage well, but He cannot bless what we handle with negligence. That is why it is time to wake up, to leave the excuses behind, and to start managing money as a wise and faithful steward would. There is a spiritual power in biblical financial management. It is not just about paying bills on time or saving a percentage of your salary. It is about understanding that every resource in our hands is a gift from God, entrusted for a greater purpose. When we manage our resources with integrity and purpose, God opens doors that seemed closed. This is not an empty theory, it is a spiritual truth that has transformed lives throughout history. The biblical stories of prosperity are not ancient tales but living models for us today. From Joseph in Egypt to the widow of Zarephath who shared her last meal with the prophet Elijah, the Bible is full of examples of people who, by applying these principles, saw miracles in their finances. We cannot ignore these examples or live as if these principles had no practical application. Wealth and faith are not at odds. In fact, they go hand in hand when handled correctly. Now, let's think about how our finances look today. Are they a reflection of obedience and faith, or of disorder and anxiety? The truth is that how to create wealth according to the Bible begins in the heart before it does in the bank account. If we cannot be faithful with little, how can we handle much? God seeks faithful hearts and diligent hands. It is not too late to begin, and no amount is too small to start managing wisely. Each of these biblical principles for wealth are not just pieces of advice, they are keys that open doors. Biblical financial wisdom is practical, accessible, and transformative. You do not need a degree in finance to apply these principles. You need faith, discipline, and a daily commitment. Like Joseph, each of us has the opportunity to rise from the most adverse circumstances and see the hand of God guiding every financial decision. Biblical financial wisdom is not just theory, it is a set of practical actions that, when applied, bring real results. The first step is to develop the habit of saving and investing with wisdom. The Bible says, "The wise store up for the future, but the foolish spend everything they have." From Proverbs 21 verse 20. What a clear truth, right? But how many times do we see money arrive in someone's hands and, in a matter of days, disappear? It is not about how much you earn, but how much you can manage correctly. A small, constant saving can grow more than you can imagine. Now, saving is not easy when needs are screaming and desires are whispering. But this is where the mindset of conscious investment comes into play. Investing is not just for the rich. It is for anyone who understands that every coin has a multiplier potential. The Bible is full of examples of people who multiplied their resources because they acted with faith and prudence. Investments according to the Bible are not about get-rich-quick schemes, but about managing the little faithfully so that God can entrust you with much. However, everything begins with a solid financial foundation. This is not something glamorous, but it is absolutely necessary. A well-structured budget, an emergency fund, and a clear strategy for managing expenses are pillars that we cannot ignore. Why do so many people earn a lot but never have enough? Because money without a clear structure is like water between the fingers. Biblical financial management begins with responsibility and transparency. Seeking God's guidance in financial decisions is not something we should underestimate. Sometimes, an opportunity seems perfect in our eyes, but it is not what God has for us. Prayer and the study of the Scriptures are infallible compasses in the world of finance. The advice of wise and spiritual people is also a powerful resource. When God is at the center of our financial decisions, risk decreases and peace increases. A modern testimony of success is that of Andres Panasiuk, a benchmark in Christian financial education. He grew up in a humble home where every cent counted, but by applying biblical principles of administration, he managed to get ahead and is now a respected international leader. He understood that money is not the end, but a means to fulfill a purpose. And that is the key. Our finances must be aligned with a greater purpose, not simply with the accumulation of material goods. The problem is that many want the results without the process. They want abundance without sacrifice, harvest without sowing. But the biblical principles of millionaires teach us that true wealth is not built overnight. It is built with small daily decisions, saying no to an unnecessary expense, saving even a little, investing with faith and discipline. There is no success without consistency, and God honors those who are faithful with little. Sometimes, financial frustration comes not from a lack of resources, but from a lack of vision. Many have been blessed with opportunities but have not taken advantage of them. Others, out of fear, have buried their talents, as in the parable of the talents. The biblical millionaire mindset has nothing to do with figures in a bank account, but with the way of seeing and managing resources. A wise heart sees opportunities where others only see obstacles. Money is a good servant, but a terrible master. The Scriptures warn us that the love of money is the root of all evil. But when money is handled with purpose, it becomes a powerful tool to bless others. Every expense, every investment, every saving is an act of stewardship, and God blesses faithful stewards. Biblical financial freedom does not mean having millions. It means not being tied to debt or anxiety. We cannot forget that all of this is a process. There will be good days and bad days, but every small step counts. Every wise decision adds up, and most importantly, God is in every step of the way. He does not leave us alone in this process. The biblical financial secrets are not just for reading, they are for living. Because when we live according to these principles, not only our finances change, but also our lives. If you feel you need prayer support for your finances or for any challenge you are facing in this area, leave your request in the comments. We are here to intercede with you, trusting that God can bring peace and provision to your situation. Now that we have understood how to apply these principles in our financial life, it is time to declare our faith. When a person begins to manage their resources according to the biblical principles for wealth, not only does their bank account change, but also their heart, their mentality, and their relationship with God. Write in the comments, God guides my finances and leads me to prosperity. Yes, write it as a declaration of faith, because when you speak with conviction, something begins to move in the spiritual world. Words have power, and declaring this truth can be the first step towards a profound transformation. Talking about mental peace and financial freedom is not an idealistic discourse. It is a biblical promise that is fulfilled in the lives of those who follow the direction of God. How many people live trapped by the fear of losing everything? How many sleepless nights are caused by overdue bills and accumulated debts? However, when we apply the biblical financial secrets, we begin to see a domino effect. Fewer debts, less worry, more control, and more peace. Because true biblical financial freedom does not mean having millions in the bank, but living without fear, knowing that every need will be met by the Creator. Generosity is a recurring theme in the scriptures, but often ignored in the modern world, where individualism reigns. However, when we understand that what we have comes from God, it is impossible not to want to share with others. Prosperity, according to the Bible, is not just a personal benefit, it carries a responsibility. Can you imagine how different the world would be if those who have more gave more? If everyone managed their resources with generosity, global financial problems would be drastically reduced. And believe me, the more you give, the more you receive. It is a spiritual law. But there is something even deeper here, the mindset of the rich that is born when you understand that you are just an administrator, not the owner. People with a poor mindset always feel lacking, always worried about losing what they have. In contrast, people with a rich mindset, founded on faith, understand that everything belongs to God and that He can multiply the little into much. What does this mean in practice? It means you can give up, you can share, you can invest because you know that your source of provision is inexhaustible. The financial accumulation of wealth is not the final goal of biblical financial freedom, but the positive impact that those riches can generate. When you live aligned with the biblical principles of millionaires, your life not only improves, but also becomes a living testimony of the power of God. It is not just about earning more money, but about living with more meaning, more direction, and more impact. There are people who have already understood this and today live with peace, purpose, and influence. People who applied the secrets of the biblical millionaires not only to enrich themselves but to bless other lives. When someone is faithful in little, God puts them over much. This promise is not just a pretty phrase, it is a divine guarantee. But to live this reality, it is necessary to align the heart, the mind, and the resources with the will of God. How many times have we heard stories of people who were about to give up but decided to trust in God, apply the biblical principles for wealth, and, like Joseph, saw their lives change overnight? This is not a fairy tale. It is the power of faith allied with practical wisdom. It is understanding that every financial decision, however small, can be an act of worship, can be a step towards the promise that God has for your life. There is something powerful that happens when we put our finances in the hands of God. The debts that seemed impossible to pay begin to disappear. The doors that seemed closed begin to open. And no, this does not mean that there will be no challenges or difficult moments. But it means that even in those moments, there will be peace, there will be direction, there will be confidence. That is the promise of biblical financial blessings. At the end of the day, every financial decision is a reflection of who we are and what we believe. If we believe that God is faithful, if we believe that He honors those who honor Him, then our actions will reflect that faith. The Bible is not just a spiritual book, it is a practical manual for life, including our finances. And when we apply the biblical principles of millionaires, we not only prosper but also become instruments for others to prosper. Upon reaching this point, it is clear that the biblical financial secrets are not just ancient advice. They are eternal truths that, when applied, transform lives. Joseph went from being a forgotten slave to the governor of Egypt because he managed with wisdom what God placed in his hands. That same opportunity is available to you today. Each principle we explored is not just a theory, it is a practical tool to break cycles of scarcity and open the doors to true prosperity according to the Bible. Perhaps right now you are facing a mountain of debt, sleepless nights, and an uncertain future. But do not forget, God has a plan for you, and that plan includes provision, peace, and purpose. Apply the biblical principles for wealth. Follow the practices taught in this video, and you will see doors opening, resources being multiplied, and anxiety being replaced by peace. Change begins with small steps, daily decisions, and constant faith. Leave your prayer request in the comments. This is a space where you can share your battles, and together we will intercede for God to intervene in your finances. Also, do not forget to write again in the comments, God guides my finances and leads me to prosperity. Write it with faith as a prophetic act, as someone who believes that God can transform any financial situation. And if you have reached this far, there is something more you need to know. The video, 5 Richest Countries in the World According to Biblical Principles, will expand your vision even more on how these principles not only transform individuals but also entire nations. It is content that you cannot miss. Oh, and before you leave, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and activate the notifications. May God bless you in all areas of your life.